She only wears those silver earrings when she's trying to impress someone new. Not me. Not anymore. I noticed them right away, dangling while she poured herself a second glass of wine before dinner. Chicken still cold in the oven. No eye contact. Lipstick slightly redder than usual. "I'll be out for a bit," she said, checking her phone and tucking a loose curl behind her ear. My fork was midair. Out? Where? Then it dropped. The tone. The timing. The earrings. I already knew. "I'm going on a date," she said. "With Mason." She didn't flinch. Just said it like she was reading off a grocery list. And then, "Please don't make this a big thing. 10 years. 10 freaking years. And this is how it happens?" So I just asked, quietly, "Does he know you're married?" She shrugged. "It's complicated." "It's not," I replied. "If you walk out that door, everything changes." And she laughed. Laughed like I was a joke. "Don't be childish, Micah. It's one night." But here's what she didn't know. One night is all it takes to light a match. And I had already soaked our life in gasoline. While she hunted for her heels, I opened the storage closet and grabbed the manila envelope I never thought I'd need. The one marked, "In case she ever cheats." Because I knew. Maybe not his name, but I knew this day would come. She thought she was leaving me at home with dinner and dignity. But when she stepped into that Uber, she set off a chain of events that would tear everything apart. Her friendships, her job, her family. And the worst part? I didn't even have to lie to ruin her. She'd already done it all herself. She left at 7:08 p.m. I remember because I heard the Uber door slam shut and my phone lit up with a "Your ride has started" notification she'd forgotten to turn off. The house got so quiet it hurt. The smell of rosemary chicken still filled the air, untouched, like me. I didn't eat. I didn't turn on the lights. I just sat at the edge of our bed with that envelope in my lap. My hands were shaking, not from anger, but from a kind of sadness so thick it felt physical, like I was wearing it. You know what was inside? Copies. Just copies. Screenshots, photos, notes to myself. Months ago, I started noticing things. The way she'd flinch when her phone buzzed. The way she changed her passwords but claimed it was for security. The way she suddenly needed to stay late, but never brought work home. At first, I blamed myself. Thought maybe I was boring. Maybe I let things get too predictable. But that's the trick, isn't it? They let you believe you're the one who's slipping. Meanwhile, they're already halfway out the door. I hired someone, not because I didn't trust her, but because I didn't trust what I was becoming. Suspicious, paranoid, quietly angry. I needed clarity, and clarity came at a cost. $600 for a private investigator, 2 weeks of waiting, and a flash drive full of truths I never wanted to see. Mason. I hadn't heard his name before tonight, but I knew his face. He worked 2 floors above her. They took lunch breaks in his car. Once, in a hotel. Always during office hours. I never said anything. I just waited. I had hoped, stupidly, that maybe, just maybe, she'd stop. That she'd catch herself, see what she was about to throw away, and come back to us before the damage hardened into something permanent. But no. She walked out in earrings I bought her on our 3rd anniversary to see another man, while I sat at home with a cold dinner and an envelope of betrayal she didn't know existed. And the most broken part? I still loved her. I still wanted her to turn around, walk back in, and say, "I messed up." But she didn't. And that silence, that awful silence, became my answer. So I called someone. Not a friend. Not family. I called the lawyer. Because if she could treat our marriage like it was optional, I was going to treat the consequences like they were permanent. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat on the couch, surrounded by shadows and broken thoughts, while her untouched wine glass sat on the table like a silent accusation. Every time a car passed outside, I found myself glancing toward the window, hoping it was her, then immediately hating myself for hoping. It was almost 2 a.m. when the door finally creaked open. She came in barefoot, heels in hand, hair slightly messy, and with that same lazy calmness, like she'd just come back from yoga, not from emotionally detonating our marriage. I didn't say a word. Neither did she. She walked past me, into the bathroom, and locked the door. The water ran for a while. Then silence. The kind of silence that doesn't come from peace, but from a complete emotional shutdown. She didn't ask why I was still awake. She didn't ask if I'd eaten. She just disappeared into sleep, like nothing had happened. Like I didn't happen. The next morning, I found her humming in the kitchen, making coffee like we hadn't just crossed a line we could never come back from. She even asked if I needed the car for anything that day, like we were roommates or polite strangers. I told her no. I said I had a few errands. That part wasn't a lie. What I didn't tell her was that my first errand was a second meeting with the divorce attorney I'd been quietly visiting every few months. I'd always hoped I wouldn't need him. But now, I didn't just need him, I needed a plan. Something clean. Something that wouldn't just end things, but leave her staring at the rubble of what she took for granted. I learned something during that consultation. I learned that our state was one of the few where adultery still mattered financially, especially when proven in writing. I learned that I could legally request phone records, email logs, even deposition if it came to that. And I learned that she had made a critical mistake. Not just the cheating, but using our joint bank card for one of her little business lunches with Mason. That was all I needed to quietly open a door she wouldn't see until it was too late. She thought she had power. She thought I'd just accept it. But what she didn't know, what she never even suspected, was that I had been documenting everything. For months, she thought she was getting away with betrayal. But I wasn't just watching. I was building a case. And the next step? Letting her dig herself even deeper. The weirdest thing wasn't the cheating. It wasn't even the lies. It was the shift that came 3 days later. Out of nowhere, she started acting like nothing had ever happened. No more late-night outings. No more passive-aggressive silences. No more "I need space" comments. Suddenly, she was cheerful, making breakfast, asking how I slept, calling me babe again. I should have felt relieved, I guess. Grateful, even. But it felt like watching a horror movie where you know something's lurking just off-screen. Her kindness was a costume, and I couldn't stop wondering what she was hiding under it. She brought home takeout from my favorite place and made a big show of setting the table, lighting candles. She sat down across from me and smiled, actually smiled, and asked how work was going. I chewed slowly, staring at her, trying to read between the lines. "So, who's Mason?" I asked. That smile didn't even flicker. "He's just someone I had lunch with," she said calmly. "You made it sound like more than it was." She took another bite of shrimp and said, "Maybe I just wanted to scare you. Wake you up." Wake me up? From what? Loyalty? She reached for my hand across the table. "I don't want to lose what we have, Micah. I really don't." Her eyes even got glassy like she might cry. But I didn't believe a single tear. Because the PI had just sent me something the night before. A photo. Mason, again. This time not at work. Not even near it. They were outside a furniture store. Midweek. During work hours. She was holding fabric samples. He was touching her lower back. It was the kind of body language that screams a level of intimacy even words can't fake. And now she's here, trying to gaslight me into believing she was just trying to scare me. But I didn't call her out. I smiled back. I played along. I let her believe I was softening. That maybe her little act was working. Because every second she thought she was in control, I was taking mine back behind the scenes. I wasn't just collecting evidence anymore. I was setting the next step in motion. Her phone bill was in my name. So was the car she drove. And the lease on our condo? Only me. Every part of her independent life still flowed through decisions I had signed for. She didn't realize how much of her comfort was built on trust, and how fast I could remove it. Legally, silently, and without warning. Let her smile. Let her flirt. Let her act like she still had the upper hand. Because the truth is, the mask wasn't just slipping. It was about to fall off completely. She started sending me texts during the day. Little check-ins. Thinking about you, smiling face with smiling eyes. Should we do a movie night? Miss you. It was like she'd flipped a switch and turned back into the woman I married, except I couldn't trust a single word. Every message felt scripted, strategic, like she wasn't loving me. She was monitoring me, testing the water. I think she realized something had changed in me the night she came home from her date, and I didn't yell, didn't cry, didn't beg. I just existed, silent, focused. And that scared her more than any argument ever could. What she didn't realize is that her reset routine, coffee in bed, Netflix suggestions, random kisses, was just giving me more time, more cover. While she acted like a doting wife, I was transferring funds from our shared savings into an account she didn't know existed. Closing the backup credit card she secretly used for her little getaways. Backing up every file from our shared cloud drive. She'd never asked why I handled the tech stuff. She just assumed I'd keep her passwords safe. And I did, until now. The investigator messaged again. He said Mason had been lying low. No more meetings. No hotel stops. But then came the kicker. A new name. Avery. A woman. Someone Morgan had been texting nearly every day. And not in a girl talk kind of way. These messages were layered. Flirty. Secretive. One, in particular, made my stomach twist. It read, "He has no idea. Still thinks I'm trying to fix us. LMAO." That was the moment it stopped being about heartbreak and started being about exposure. You want to cheat? Fine. You want to mock me while doing it? Now it's war. I printed the message, folded it neatly, slid it into a blank envelope, and the next morning, I left it on her passenger seat, right on top of her purse. I didn't say a word. Didn't even look at her when she asked if I needed anything from the store. She drove off like everything was normal. But that message hit her before she made it to the end of our street. She didn't come home that night. Not until after midnight. And when she did, her mask was gone. She walked in like someone had drained the color out of her. No purse. No words. Just stood there in the doorway, soaked in streetlight and panic. I didn't even look up from the laptop. Just kept typing. The silence sat between us like a loaded weapon. She finally spoke, low, shaking. What was that supposed to mean? I didn't answer. I clicked save, shut the lid, and stood up. Walked past her, not toward her, not into her drama. Into the kitchen. Opened the fridge, poured a glass of water. Drank it slowly. I swear, the sound of the glass hitting the counter made her jump. "Micah," she said again, louder this time. "We need to talk." Now she wanted to talk. Now that the illusion was cracking. Now that someone other than her was pulling the strings. I turned to her and finally said, "You lied." Repeatedly. Boldly. And then laughed about it behind my back. What's left to say? Her eyes welled up instantly, but no tears fell. "Not yet. You've been going through my stuff?" she asked, like that was the betrayal. "No," I replied. "You left it wide open. You wanted to get caught. You just didn't think I'd catch you in a way you couldn't twist into my fault." She sat down at the edge of the couch, hand over her mouth. "It was never real with her," she muttered. "It was stupid. Just distraction. I didn't think you'd ever actually find out." That part stung more than I expected. Not the cheating, not the betrayal, but the fact that she thought I'd never notice. That I'd just keep floating through this marriage like a blind ghost, unaware she was living a whole other life inside ours. "I don't care about Mason," I said. "Or Avery. Or whoever else you're texting when I'm 2 feet away. I care about what this marriage became without me even realizing it." She opened her mouth, but I cut her off. "And I'm not yelling, Morgan. I'm not throwing things. You know why? Because I'm not here to convince you of anything. I'm just here to finish what you started." She looked up. "What does that mean?" I pulled a single folder from the drawer, dropped it on the table. Inside was everything. Her messages, the PI reports, the hotel dates, the bank statements. It was all printed, ordered, labeled. Her hands trembled as she reached for it. I said nothing. I didn't need to, because the truth was finally louder than her lies. And she was finally hearing it for the first time. She sat there for 20 minutes, reading, not saying a word. Every few pages, she'd glance up like she wanted to scream, then drop her eyes back to the paper as if hoping something had been faked. But it was all real. And worse, it had all been hers. Her words, her choices, her lies. I could see it happening in real time. That quiet breakdown people don't show in movies. No outbursts. Just her face slowly falling apart, like she was watching someone die. Only it was herself. The person she pretended to be. The version of herself she thought could cheat, deceive, and still keep the safety net of a loyal husband quietly waiting at home. That fantasy was gone now. She finally looked at me, voice barely above a whisper. "You were planning this?" I nodded. "Since June." Her lips trembled. "But why didn't you say anything?" I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. "Because talking doesn't work with you anymore. You hear what you want. You rewrite reality. I stopped trying to fix it the day you walked out for your date, like our marriage was just background noise." She covered her face with both hands. "This wasn't supposed to go this far," she said. And that line, flipped something in me. "This wasn't supposed to go this far." I repeated, almost laughing. "You had affairs. You lied to my face. You bragged about manipulating me in your texts. And you think this is far just because now you don't control the fallout?" She stood suddenly, pacing now, voice rising. "Micah, you can't just nuke our life. What about our friends? My parents? What are we even telling people?" I stared at her and said the one thing I'd held back this entire time. "We're telling them the truth. For once. She froze. And I knew, in that second, that truth was her greatest fear. Not guilt, not even regret, but exposure. She wasn't afraid of what she did. She was afraid people would know. I pulled the final piece from my bag, a signed retainer. The lawyer's letterhead. Divorce papers. Not yet filed, but ready. I placed them beside the folder and said, "You don't have to sign this. But if you don't, I will." She didn't move. Her face went pale. All that fake calm she'd worn like armor the last few days? Gone. She wasn't in control anymore. She knew it. And for the first time since all of this started, so did I. She didn't speak for a long time. Just stared down at the papers, blinking like maybe they'd disappear if she held her breath long enough. But they didn't. Nothing did. I watched the weight of everything finally land on her. Not just the cheating, not just the lies, but the realization that she had broken something she couldn't put back together with a few sweet texts and a fake smile. When she finally spoke, her voice was flat. "What happens if I sign?" I didn't flinch. "You get your freedom, and I get mine." Her hands shook as she reached for the pen. But she didn't sign. She just held it. Then, barely above a whisper, she asked, "Do you still love me?" That was the hardest part, because some broken part of me still did. But I couldn't keep loving someone who only saw my value once it was too late. "I don't even know who you are anymore," I said quietly. "And maybe you don't either." She left that night, packed a bag, and drove to her sister's place without another word. I didn't chase her. I didn't call. I didn't fall apart. I just stood in the doorway for a long time after she left, feeling something strange in my chest. It wasn't relief, and it wasn't grief. It was silence, a real kind this time. Not the heavy, painful kind we'd been living in, but one that felt like possibility. Over the next few weeks, I did things I hadn't done in years. I fixed the fence she always said I'd never get around to. I started running again, not to punish myself, but to breathe. I opened my old sketchbook. I remembered what it felt like to be a person, not just someone's background character. Friends came out of the woodwork. Even her mom. Yeah, her mom. Called me and said she was sorry, that she always knew Morgan had a selfish streak, but never imagined she'd go this far. That call hit me harder than I expected. The divorce went through faster than I thought. Clean. Quiet. She didn't contest anything. Maybe deep down, she knew she couldn't. I'm not saying I came out of this with a smile and a new girlfriend. That's not real life. I came out bruised, tired, and unsure of who I was without her. But for the first time in years, I was me. Not the over-accommodating husband. Not the fixer. Just Micah. A man who got lied to, burned, and still stood up anyway. Funny thing is, sometimes losing someone who never really saw you is how you finally see yourself.